What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 41 of Week in Review. My name is Sean. It is the Halloween spooky, scary, skeleton spectacular, and on this week's show, we're going to actually take a trip back in time to three separate time periods to cover two movies and a game. So we'll jump on the magical history, time travel, magic cool bus, and we'll also pick some fun movies to watch for Halloween, and we'll look forward to this week's new releases. Our first stop on this historical tour is the mid-90s for the movie. The mid-1990s, that is. I've talked about this movie a couple of different times on the show. I've been very, very excited for it. And unfortunately, I didn't actually like it as much as I thought I would. I was really hyped on the trailers, and I thought I was going to totally love this movie, but I think it has some shortcomings that really take away from what it's trying to do. After the movie, as I was walking back from the movie theater, I was thinking about it, and I was trying to work out the points I wanted to hit and the things I wanted to say about this movie and how I wanted to talk about it. Some highlights, some lowlights, that sort of thing. And I kind of just kept coming back to the word incomplete. There was something about this movie that just felt missing. And it's a pretty basic story. It's a little kid named Stevie who meets up with a group of skaters, and it just follows his adventure through presumably the summer of a year in the mid-1990s. It was never really explicitly stated that I noticed, so I had trouble figuring that out. He's never in school, so I'd assume it's over a summer. At one point, they mentioned that he's been hanging out with them for a few months, so that kind of gives you like a summer vacation sort of thing. The movie feels very much like a character study in that in following Stevie, we see how far he's willing to push himself to be accepted in this group. And that was the biggest problem I had with this movie. He makes the 180-degree turn so quickly, like in the span of like 16 hours, maybe, where he's initially set up as like a very quiet, but like kind of caring kid. He like goes out of his way to get his brother a CD that he knows he doesn't have, the brother doesn't have. And the next day he meets up with this group of skaters and starts smoking cigarettes. And it's this weird thing where it's like, it doesn't seem like that kind of kid, but at the same time, like you look at it and you're kind of looking at maybe the peer pressure angle. He doesn't want to like look like a wimp in front of the other kid or whatever. I don't know. It's just a weird thing, and he just keeps going down that direction. Like he starts smoking cigarettes, then he's drinking, then he smokes weed, and then like all this stuff he just keeps doing, and no one really slows him down. No one in the group is like, hey, maybe like ease off on that a little bit. And it's just this weird thing where it boils over into his home life too. So instead of him being like nice to his mom, there's a scene where he's literally like screaming at her in a car, like shut the fuck up, like over and over and over again. And it was super weird. And I was like, that's really odd. It was the part that I just had the hardest time with, where I was like, all of a sudden, like you're just like this type of person. Everything he did felt so at odds with how his character was set up, and maybe that's the point of the movie. Maybe that's just kind of what I'm missing, is like they're so cool that he's willing to do just anything and everything to fit in with this group. But it was still like, it was weird. Over the course of the movie, Stevie seems increasingly frustrated with his home life, but it's never really like given a reason why. Like it seems like things are fine. He's out skating. The only time he ever really gets in trouble is when his mom takes him into the skate shop where he meets everybody and like tells him like, hey, stay away from my son, which is immediately followed by Stevie screaming shut the fuck up at his mom for like 3 minutes, which is immediately followed by the most effective scene where Nicole Smith's character Ray very calmly and empathetically explains that like, hey, as bad as things seem with you right now, things could be a whole lot worse. It's mentioned in the trailer like you have shit in your closet, but I bet if you looked in anybody else's closet, you see their shit and you wouldn't trade yours for theirs. And it's effective because he's empathetic with him, and he's played really wonderfully by Nicole Smith. Ray is probably the best character in the movie, and he's led by the best performance in the movie as well. The scene also gives a little bit of backstory to different characters, and it shows that the cracks are starting to form within this group. He mentions that one of the characters, Fuck Shit, that's his name, like his nickname, Fuck Shit, is only looking to party and do this sort of thing, and you can tell that Ray is starting to get frustrated with this. By this point, the kid who initially introduces himself to Stevie and kind of brings him into the group is starting to get annoyed because Stevie is more popular in the group than he is. The other guy, 8th grade, he wants to make movies, but nobody's really taking him seriously. So things are starting to break a little bit. As the cracks start to form and as the film starts to build its tension, fueled a lot by anger and frustration and fear of losing someone that they care about as far as friends are concerned, and the future and things of that nature. Increasingly poor decisions are made, and it leads to a fairly effective final sequence. And that, I mean, it got me. I was emotionally invested enough, but I was still thrown kind of by the 180 sort of issue, I guess. It's so weird that I'm just not super thrilled with this movie. It's because it feels like a movie that is a lot of like good or interesting scenes and a lot of good and interesting characters and well done performances, but it just doesn't feel cohesive. I keep going back to the word incomplete. There's just something missing. We need more of Stevie's home life, maybe, or maybe some more side story on some of the other characters. Because things, even when things boil to a point where like people are acting very selfishly, you still don't necessarily care about anyone other than Stevie, and maybe in my case I really cared about Ray, but like the other three kids I was kind of just like, whatever, you're not really interesting. And unfortunately that bites Lucas Hedges' character, he plays Stevie's brother, the most as far as being like uninteresting. He is either underused or too one note. He plays like the classic like asshole older brother, and like Lucas Hedges is good, and I looked at his filmography. He's been in like six movies that I've already seen. He was in Dan in Real Life with Steve Carell. He was in Lady Bird, which is probably his most recognizable role. He was in Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Moonrise Kingdom, and the other one, The Grand Budapest Hotel. And he has two more movies coming out in Ben is Back and Boy Erased. So this guy's all over the place. And I didn't recognize him until I saw him in like a YouTube thumbnail where I was like, oh, because they had two pictures behind him. It was like Lucas Hedges describes his most iconic roles with like Lady Bird in the background. And I sat there and I went, wait, oh, he was in Lady Bird. He's really good in Lady Bird. But he's underutilized and misused here, and his character just sucks. But he doesn't really have any sort of like, you hate him because he's like a piece of shit, but there's no redeeming quality to him. There's no reason to root for him. You hate him because you're supposed to hate him, but doesn't feel genuine. You're like, man, you're the shitty older brother. Like, you're a generic shitty older brother. Thanks for being here. I mean, Lucas Hedges plays him well, but kind of a wasted character. And it's just, there's a scene with him where they're sitting on the couch, Stevie and his brother are sitting on the couch, that just goes on far too long and doesn't add any useful information to it. Like, I sat there in the theater thinking like, what's the point of that? Half of that conversation doesn't even need to be in the movie. The first half is interesting because he's talking about like, you think you're tough and shit because you have like your new group of friends, like you think you're cool now. Like, that's kind of interesting. You can see there's frustration there, but then he goes on talking about something about his mom, and it's just like, that's dumb and kind of useless. I don't know. It's a weird movie. It's a movie that just didn't feel like it clicked well for me. It didn't feel like, it just wasn't a movie that I was head over heels, which I thought I would be. I was so excited about this movie with the trailers and stuff, and I don't know, the 4x3 aspect of it is really, really cool. Makes it feel very 1990s because everything obviously was in 4x3. I mean, movies were in 16:9 or whatever, but you know, TV was all 4x3 and all that sort of stuff. So it feels very authentic and real, but some of the decisions I just didn't agree with or didn't understand or just thought were weird. Overall, like, it's a hard movie for me to like recommend or push people like, go see this movie, it's freaking awesome, it's really cool, whatever. But it's also not a movie that I'm like, don't see it. I sit right in the middle of like that kind of like the weird zone of like, if you're interested, go see it. If you're not missing anything. That sort of weird kind of middle ground, but that's where I sit with it. I'm bummed I didn't like it more. The next stop on this week's history tour is the year 1899. We're going back probably a full 95 years to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2, which released last Friday on PlayStation and Xbox. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, just to be clear, not like PlayStation 2 and Xbox, they're not coming out on that. You could play Red Dead Revolver on those consoles if you really want to. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do that. This is going to be a very early impression sort of review, like early thoughts. I've only played for probably 5 hours or so. I'm enjoying the game, but I think it has some drawbacks so far in the early hours. So far the game has been very tutorial heavy, which it makes sense. There's a lot of game here. I feel like I have very barely scratched the very tip of the iceberg in this particular game. There's a lot of different stuff going on. You have to take care of your horse, you have to hunt and take care of your homestead area, you have to take care of Arthur Morgan himself, you have to do all kinds of different stuff. There's a lot of shit going on in this particular game. Even though so many of the missions are tutorial based, I am still enjoying it, and the more I play it, the more I like it. The drawback with the number of, and I'm going to keep saying this word, it's going to drive me nuts, the drawback with the number of tutorials is the fact that the story seems to have kind of been put kind of underlying at this point. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. There was, and this is like very mild spoilers, you're on the run, there was a riverboat situation that went wrong, then there's a bunch of money in a city. And that's about it, and I played for about 6 hours, and I don't feel like I have much more of an overall directive, and I also don't feel like I know much more about what happened on that riverboat. So that seems to have taken a back seat to training you to hunt twice, 2 separate times, and using campfires and all that sort of stuff. A lot of the systems are very cool and they're very interesting. The game looks absolutely gorgeous. The characters are well written, and I'm sure the story, when it picks up, will be interesting. I hope it'll be interesting. I like Dutch a little bit more than I like Arthur Morgan. Arthur Morgan's he's kind of bland. He's like a quick-witted, kind of typical main character in a Western from what I've seen so far, but I tend to like Dutch a little bit more. It is great to have John Marston back in the action. He hasn't done really anything. You go on a mission to find him, and that's about it. He has his famous scars. They are fresh. We find out how that happened. But he hasn't had much to do. I like a lot of the side characters so far. As a plus for me, the bounty hunts are back. I really enjoyed doing those in the first game. And the stranger quests are back as well. And I actually had forgotten about the stranger quests in the first game until I saw the question mark pop up in the second game. And I went, oh, that's right. The stranger quests were in the first game, and they were some of the best parts of that first game. So I'm looking forward to. I have one of them right now in my book that I need to go do. Those are some early takeaways from this particular game. I've only put 5 to 6 hours in it so far. I'm happy to see the stranger quests back. I'm happy to see the bounties back. I need a little bit more of a narrative structure. There are 2 or 3 pieces going on if you include the rival gang aspect of it. That, I mean, they all kind of just feel like side plots, and I don't feel like I have that main narrative. Like in the first game, you are John Marston, you're working for the government, you're trying to capture the remaining gang members. That's a good starting point and a good, like, this is my directive, this is my goal. All this other stuff just kind of happens along the way, and that piece of information hasn't quite been dropped into my lap just yet. I don't know how far you have to get in. I guess this is like a 60-hour game or something like that, which is mind-boggling and is like kind of a daunting task when you're like, I've put like maybe 10% of the story missions done. I'm like, oh, great. But I am enjoying the game, and I'm looking forward to playing more. I'm also looking forward to the online portion of it. Being able to get in on the ground floor. I had that option with Grand Theft Auto 5. I just never really followed through. But there's something about Red Dead that speaks to me a little bit more than Grand Theft Auto. So far, it's been a very fun 5 hours, and I'm looking forward to dumping a bunch more in. Our final stop on this history tour is the year 1851 in the state of Oregon, where The Sisters Brothers takes place, which is a movie that actually really benefited from being in theaters when Red Dead Redemption 2 was out. I actually started playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for about an hour and a half on Thursday night after it unlocked at about 9 o'clock. And I had been thinking about seeing this movie. I'd checked out a trailer. I like John C. Reilly. I was like kind of on the fence, like I could go, might not. I don't really know. Then I played Red Dead Redemption, and I was like, I could go for a Western. I could go for, not like a Western bacon cheeseburger at Carl's Jr., which I could go for one of those. But in this particular case, a Western movie. And I really like this movie. This might be my favorite piece of this history tour so far. I thoroughly enjoyed the 2 hours I spent in the theater watching this movie. I mean, right from the start for this movie, like, it has what might be my favorite opening shot in any movie I've ever seen. It's this beautiful, from like a photographic, I'm not really sure how to say that. From a cinematography perspective, that's a better way to say it. It looks great. It's well lit. The action's in the foreground, but it looks beautiful in the background. It's in the trailer. If you're at all curious about this sort of thing, I'm moving my hands a lot. And it set the movie off on a right note for myself, where I was like, this is visually fascinating. Like, I'm in. The movie overall is really, really beautifully shot. That early sequence just really, really stuck out to me. Another thing I really enjoyed about this movie was how simple it is. It's 2 brothers, the Sisters Brothers, John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix, and their mission is to get this guy. And that's it. And we just kind of follow their adventure to catch up with this person that they have been tasked with getting. The Sisters Brothers aren't on their own, though. They have help from Jake Gyllenhaal's John Morris, who makes early contact with Riz Ahmed's Herman Kermit Warm, who's probably the best character in the movie, and Riz Ahmed gives the best performance in this particular movie. He's like kind and warm and caring and understanding, and like really picks apart people in an interesting way. And I think he does a good job of making it seem like maybe the Sisters Brothers, like the Sisters Brothers are never like explicitly stated as like the good guy, but it does definitely make you question whether the Sisters Brothers should be going through with this sort of thing, or if maybe they are on the Sisters Brothers themselves are on the wrong side. Have I said Sisters Brothers enough in this little section of the review? Either way, he gives the best performance in the movie, and I really enjoyed his character. I really enjoyed the brothers, and I think that John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix are well matched with each other. John C. Reilly's brother is the more even-keeled half, who seems like he's kind of past wanting to do this sort of thing, whereas Joaquin Phoenix is the more hair-trigger, angrier one, who will push himself until he's lost something that he cannot get back, until it kind of clicks with him that maybe it's time to hang this sort of thing up. They both have their frustrations with each other when they aren't on the same page, and those interactions and those things where they feel like the one of them's holding the other person back, they all feel understandable and relatable. This is a Western / comedy, though it leans more towards the Western / like drama side of it. There are comedic elements to it, very weird scenes that happen that are like clearly designed to be funny. Typically they involve one of the brothers discovering something new that's like pretty common to us, such as like a toothbrush or flushing toilets. I think this does a nice job of striking that balance between comedy and drama in a way that I enjoyed. I can imagine that some people will be turned off because some of the comedic bits are like may feel a little bit out of place, but I really enjoyed this movie for what it was. I'm not going to give it away, but I just wanted to point out how much I loved the ending to this movie. It's very sweet and heartfelt, and it just like it left me with like a really good feeling. Like walking out of this movie, I was walking out with a smile on my face. Like this movie it's fun and I had a great time with it, but it's also like very dramatic and very dark at points. And I really liked the note that they decided to end this particular movie on. It's nice to walk out of a movie like feeling good, even though like bad things have happened. It was something that really, really struck me where the final sequence is playing out and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like this is a fantastic way to finish this movie. Overall, this was a movie that I really enjoyed. I thought the performances were great. I really liked the characters. I thought it did a great job of balancing dark drama with comedy, and it was just a movie that I had a great time watching. Back here in the year 2018, it is Halloween week, hence this shirt. So I thought I would pick some movies that you could enjoy on this Halloween week. You can obviously watch Napoleon Dynamite on UMD, or Napoleon Dynamite on DVD, or Napoleon Dynamite on Special Edition DVD, or Napoleon Dynamite on Blu-ray, or Napoleon Dynamite on 10th Anniversary Edition Blu-ray, or you can watch Napoleon Dynamite, the complete animated series. So there you go. There are your Halloween picks. Yes, I really own that many copies of Napoleon Dynamite. My more serious picks are Monsters, Inc. is my favorite Disney Pixar movie. It's really, really great. It's not scary, but it's fun. It has monsters. There you go, Halloween. And then if you're not tired of monsters yet, you can watch Monsters University, which is a prequel. Or you can watch this first and then watch Monsters, Inc. Either way, they're great movies. I really like them. They're very good. In addition to those Pixar movies, they did do Toy Story of Terror, which was really good. It's a short little, what is it? It's 22 minutes. It was a little made-for-TV thing. I think they have a Christmas one as well. I really enjoy Toy Story of Terror. If you don't have kids or you don't want to watch cartoons as an adult, which I will do, you can watch What We Do in the Shadows. It's a fantastic movie from Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. They wrote and directed it. It's about vampires. It's very, very funny. I really like this movie. It's great. You can also watch the horror comedy classic Rom Zom Com, Shaun of the Dead, one of my favorite movies ever made. I have a couple of copies of that, so you can also watch Shaun of the Dead again, back to back, put them on 2 screens, 2 separate rooms. That's a good way to do it. A personal favorite of mine, though I don't know how many people are going to like it, I really like Grindhouse. It is 3 hours long, so if you're going to watch one of them, just watch Planet Terror. It's the more Halloween-y of the two, though Death Proof is probably the better overall, like, film. So, I mean, take that for what you will. I like the whole thing, and I'm glad they finally released it all in one Blu-ray. And then if you actually want something that's it's not, like, scary, but it has to do with vampires and it's more serious, you can watch Let Me In, or the original Swedish version, Let the Right One In. These movies are fantastic. I really, really enjoy them. You don't need to watch one to watch the other. They are both equally good. I do personally prefer the Swedish version just a smidge. You can also watch Quiet Place, which is one of my favorite movies of the year. It's back there on my shelf somewhere. So there's some Halloween movie picks for you if you want to get into the spooky spirits. I'll probably just watch some cartoons and have a good time. I bought candy for myself, so I don't have to go trick-or-treating this year. I don't know what I would dress up as, probably a lobster. But hey, there you go. Get in the Halloween spirit with those movies. Finally, on this week's show, we'll look forward to this week's new releases. It's a big week for Blu-ray. The big new Blu-ray release this week is Batman the Complete Animated Series Deluxe Limited Edition. It features all 109 episodes of Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures. It has 7 lenticular collector cards of original animation artwork, 2 bonus discs of animated films in Batman Mask of the Phantasm and Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero. It's 12 discs in total. It's a crazy box set. It also has 3 Funko Pops just for fun. It's Batman, the Joker, and Harley Quinn. So that's your big, huge Blu-ray release this week. I really want this. Never Going Back is out this week, which is a movie that I wanted to see, but we never got. Same thing goes for Mandy, which was critically acclaimed, and I really wanted to see, but never made it here to Spokane. The Spy Who Dumped Me is out, which I thought about seeing, but just didn't. And then Teen Titans Go to the Movies, which also is kind of in that Spy Who Dumped Me category, where it's like, I thought about it, but I just didn't do it. Those movies feel like a good Redbox rental to me. So there you go. Big week on Blu-ray. The big movie this week is Bohemian Rhapsody, hitting theaters. I'm going to check that out this weekend. Also, The Nutcracker and the Four Realms is out, which is a Disney movie that I think has a fascinating art style to it, or art design, set design. It looks interesting, visually looks interesting. I'm not exactly sure what word you'd use to describe that. And then Boy Erased was listed, but I expect that to be a very limited release, and we'll probably get that in the next few weeks. 3 new games of note this week. The First Tree hits PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Dad Simulator Dad Rector's Cut hits on PlayStation 4, and The Quiet Man hits on PlayStation 4. I mentioned The Quiet Man during my E3 predictions, and I'm excited to try that particular game out. The Xbox Game Pass games, well, some of them were announced. The 2 that I noticed that I was interested in was Sniper Elite 4, which I've talked about on this particular show. I really enjoyed my time with it. And Grip, which it's a combat racing game, and it hits on November 6th. The other game, Sniper Elite 4, will hit on the 1st. Grip Combat Racing is going to be a Xbox Game Pass launch day and date sort of thing, which is interesting for a third party. We're also going to get a few more announcements on the XO18 live stream thing they're doing on November 10th, so there'll probably be a few more games announced, and I would expect them to be fairly big. Last time they did that, they did it at E3, and they announced I think it's The Division and Fallout 4, so I don't know if they'll be that big necessarily, but they could be some nice additions to the Game Pass. Xbox Live games with gold were not announced at the time of this recording. PlayStation Plus games were not announced at the time of this recording. There you go. That's the show for you this week. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments below if you saw Mid-90s, what did you think? If you played Red Dead Redemption 2, what did you think? If you saw The Sisters Brothers, which I would bet that would be the least possible answer, what did you think of that particular movie? What are you looking forward to this week? If you like the content, hit that subscribe button so you know when I post new videos. Check back every Tuesday for more Week in Review. We'll see you next week.